Thank you for joining me again on Willow Wonderings with me, Chelsea. Today I want to talk to you about fear. So many times in our lives, there's things that we fear. We fear failure, we fear heights, we fear spiders, we fear snakes, we fear all kinds of things that really, once we start to look at it, it's really not that scary. We fear taking small steps. We fear pain. We fear hurt. We fear rejection. We fear abandonment. There's so many things that we fear in our life that really keep us from doing what we could possibly do and reaching full potential. I heard something today, and it was seeking the thrill of discovery, not the fear of defeat. So, really, just reaching out and looking beyond ourselves to discover what we could possibly do. Um, I recently started running again and really liking it. And at first, I was into running marathons. Actually, I think I started with 5Ks, but eventually it was marathons. I skipped right over half marathons. I skipped right over um, some of the 5Ks. I think I did a lot of fun 5Ks, like the color runs, and we did a bubble run. We did an adventure type run where there was all these blow up inflatable 5K. That's what it was called, and we had so much fun just doing those. But I knew and I felt like I needed to do more and like I could do more. And so I started seeking out marathons. And I did my first marathon in San Diego, and it was a blast. I had a great time. I ended up receiving some really bad news in the middle of it, but I knew I needed to finish. There was one weekend after one of my deployments that a friend of mine and I had decided that we were going to run two marathons back to back, one Saturday and one Sunday. And I was on a fitness high and I was so excited. I wanted to just try this out, but the closer and closer it got and the less and less that I trained, because I did not train very well for any of those marathons, I started to get scared and I almost backed out on her for the second one. So we did the Richmond Marathon on Saturday, and then we drove to Outer Banks after running 26.2 miles, which is wild in and of itself. We drove to Outer Banks, North Carolina, a few hours away, and the next day we got up and we decided to go ahead with the next marathon in Outer Banks. And let me tell you, that marathon was so hard, but so fun and such an amazing challenge. I did not think that I could do it. I did not think that I would make it through that marathon. I got to a point where I was moving my feet and I had to run, but at like this super slow pace. My friend was walking the same pace that I was running, and we were not moving fast at all. But she was really just pushing me to keep going. So through all of this, that trail was on the road, it was in the woods, it was on the gravel, it was all over the place, and I really started enjoying the trail parts of it. So after this marathon was over, we made it through, we survived. I was in so much pain, but I let myself heal for, I'm sure, months. I'm sure I did not do any type of activity for months after that. And we started thinking and talking about some other things, but that was the last race, if I'm not mistaken, that her and I ran together. And she went on to finish her 50 marathons in 50 states, which blows my mind. But I started seeking out some bigger adventures and bigger things a few years later. It took me a little bit. That was 2018. And in 2021, no, 2022, I ran my first ultra marathon. I trained for probably longer than I ever had, but I was scared. I didn't know what to expect, but I was ready. It was on a trail that was really close to our house, and we had just moved, but I had spent a lot of time on that trail, but it was wet and it was rainy, and it was a 2-loop course. It was a marathon. That was two times. So the more that I ran on that trail, and the more that I really started pushing and discovering of myself, I gave everything that I had. I put everything I had on that trail, and ended up limping into the finish line. I had hurt my hip. I thought so many times about quitting, so many times about stopping at one of the aid stations, asking them to bring me back to the start because I was not going to make it. But I decided to keep pushing because I knew that limit that I was at, and that fear that I was having of, well, what if I do this? Well, what if I hurt this? Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I can't make it back? I knew that there was support along the way, but I was still so scared that I wouldn't make it back. And I was still so scared that people would see me as weak, or I don't know what I expected, what I thought people were going to see me as. That was my first ultra. But people on the trail were so different. There's such a camaraderie that people have, and just the people cheering you on along the way is incredible, and it's so worth it. And so I kept pushing. I was like, I know that I can make it up this hill. I know that I can make it through this one. So I was walking sideways. I was walking through the trail, and I was trying my best just to make it back to the start, make it back to where the finish line was, but also the start line for the next loop. And I got to a point, there was these rolling hills, and it was literally just up one and straight down the next, and up one and straight down the next, and there were 3 right in a row before the turnaround. And so I started up these hills, and there were people behind me. I knew that there were. I knew that the guy that was in the lead, I knew that he was coming up too. And man, that guy, super impressive. I was so astounded by how fast and how quick. This man didn't even have water. He did not carry any water on him. It was just him and his shorts and his shoes. And he just went. It ran 50 miles like it was nobody's business. Like he was just out for another day. And so I got to going up the first hill, and it was just limp, limp, limp. And I started going sideways. I started going backwards. I started doing anything I could to just make it through that race, to make it through that hill, and then down the next one. And then here comes the next hill, and it's just a little bit taller. And I make it up, and then I'm coming back down. And then the next one was just, man, that thing was straight up, it felt like. And I just kept on. I would have to pick up my leg, move it forward, and just keep literally limping through this race. And I think I was at hour 6 or so, and probably 18 miles in, and I still had time to go. I still had effort to put in, and I just kept going. I text my crew, and they already sensed it. They already knew, but they weren't going to tell me. They believed that I was going to make it as far as I was going to make it. They knew that I would not stop. They knew that I would just keep on pushing. And so I did. I kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going. And my text to them was essentially, I'm not going to make the cutoff to start the next loop, but I am going to finish this one. And so they cheered me on. They did everything that an amazing crew and just good friends would do for you. And so that, man, the cheering, and even the race director, he saw it, but he met me at the finish line and he handed me the marathon medal. And it was a really cool medal, but I almost didn't feel like I earned it. It was a really weird feeling. I didn't feel like I had actually earned that medal because I didn't finish the race. I didn't finish the full prescribed distance that I was supposed to finish. And so I don't actually display that medal. I have it in a box, and I don't always wear that shirt, but I have it in my closet. I have it as a reminder. And that race to me was my capstone. I gave everything I possibly had. I went to the doctor a few days after, and he's like, what have you done? And he's twisting my leg all different ways, and he's like, does this hurt? Does this hurt? And of course I'm in agony, just pure pain. And he's like, okay, like, I don't know what you did to get to this point, but, and I'm like, it's no big deal. Like, I just ran a marathon over the weekend, like, and just slid in the mud, hurt my hip. And he's like, well, no wonder that your leg hurts. But he didn't say, maybe you should stop or anything like that. He was just like, what are we going to do to fix it? And so just thinking about that, like, I carry that part with me too. And I carry a lot of that optimism because he didn't suggest that I stop. He didn't suggest that I find a new sport. He didn't suggest that any part of me gives up or even that I was a failure. He was just like, wow, that was amazing. And encouraged that we just find a fix. And so we did, and I've been running on it since, and my hips have been doing so much better. But it wasn't about failing. It wasn't about failing that race because I felt like I gave everything. And so I took that feeling and I really just thrived off of it. And so I started looking for the next race. I started looking. Well, nothing was available because they hadn't dropped yet. They hadn't shown up. They hadn't put the schedule out there. So I just waited. I waited and I trained. I waited and I kept running. I waited for a while. I will say that I delayed my training a lot for the second race. And I knew that I had to start testing my hips. That was my biggest concern. I had to start testing my hips. I had to start testing how I would do in the dark, overnight, in these long runs, in delirium. Like, what would it be like? And I was listening to David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, actually for the last few weeks, but I was listening to it today, and he was talking about fear, and he was talking about how scared that he actually was during so many of the races and so many of the things that he went through, but he just kept going. The man ran on broken legs to do not just one, but so many runs and so many experiences that he went through. He just kept going. He didn't let anything stop him, and just really focusing on what that fear drives, because fear and excitement are the same feelings inside. We get that same feeling inside when we're nervous or when we're fearful or when we're excited. And so taking that feeling and just letting it be exciting instead. And really just pushing ourselves through the fear, pushing ourselves through the pain, and just doing it anyway. I tend to get very nervous when I talk in front of people, or even when I'm going to fly, or when I'm going to speak or sing or do anything in front of people. Even being in a big group and unmuting myself on Zoom, my heart will start pounding. people that I've known, people that know me, people that I've talked to on so many occasions, my heart will start pounding, and I just get fearful of, what are people going to think? What are people going to see? What are people going to reject? What are people going to see when they look at me? And I want to encourage you to just do it anyway. Just put yourself out there. And there's nothing that you can't do. The potential that you work off, or the greatness that you work off of right now, is 40%. 40% of what you can actually do. So continue to push through those barriers, and you'll go from your 40% to your 60% to your 80%. And if you just do, this is something that I heard David Goggins say, and I'm just like, it's amazing. He calls it the 40% rule. So if you do 10% better than you every single day, or every single thing that you're training in, or every single piece of your life, do 10% better, you'll never reach a ceiling, because you're always doing 10% better than your newest level. And so you're 10% better of what your 40% was, or you're 10% better of what your 40% is now. You'll continue it and continue it and continue it, and just continue to get better every single step of the way. And your life will increase that much more. You'll be able to step into that greatness, step into your power, step into your joy and who you are, and allow that to shine to the world. So I want to invite you to keep shining. Don't let fear stop you. Be thrilled by the discovery of who you are. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you resonate with this, if you like this episode, please like, subscribe, rate, and share. I would love to have you in this space to be able to just be who you are. Enjoy who you are. Trust that you are welcome. You are valued, and you are important. Thanks for coming.